Alright, so I figured it would be pretty cool to show the CAD model of my 3D printer kit that I just bought. It's an open source deal. The graphics are quite slow in this because I didn't turn anything off. I mean, all the screw threads, all the impeller blades or centrifugal blower blades, whatever that is. Probably the teeth on the belts, yeah, even the teeth on the belts. So, all the slices on the motor, all the teeth on the gears, probably threads on the screws. Yeah, threads on the screws. So as you can see, this computer is actually pretty good. I turned down the quality because it was just really slow. But just a little bit of overview of this printer. So it's initially a 330 millimeter by 330 millimeter by 400 and something, 460 or something like that. I don't know, 4 something. And so it's pretty large build volume. corexy, super fast. This is the all-wheel drive setup, meaning it's got four motors for the corexy. And with that, I lose 10 millimeters off of the y-axis, so it's actually 330 by 320. Not a big deal. It's all enclosed. I hid all the acrylic panels just for the sake of processing speed. I really haven't even looked at this CAD model yet. Let's hide that. Nice little tip. Tab hides whatever you're hovering over. Got that from Too Tall Toby recently. Let's see. So here's our board. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 channels, I guess I'll call them. So that's the main board, but it runs on it'll run Clipper on a Raspberry Pi 4, which I also bought for the kit. And you can see here that it has part cooling centrifugal blowers and ducts on both sides, and the print head cooler, or I probably messed up my big terminology, is actually a CPAP machine. Maybe not the entire CPAP machine, I don't know, but it's this is a CPAP hose, and there's a pump that I think might come off the CPAP or blower or whatever you want to call it back here somewhere. Yeah, so here's the blower or pump or whatever you want to call it that feeds the CPAP tube. Obviously, they didn't model the CPAP tube. That reminds me, I actually have a really cool model. In fact, it was for a client that was designing a 3D printer like 5 years ago. A huge format 3D printer, and he had a similar setup for the print head cooling where he had a hose. And it's actually in my portfolio. I made this hose, and it actually has the spiral because it's a vacuum hose, even though it's not used for vacuum. Anyway, it's got this spiral wrap, and so I designed it so as you moved parts around, the hose would move and update, and the spiral would even move and update. It was a pretty impressive model, actually, if I do say so myself. So this came with a whole bunch of aluminum parts. A lot of these structural parts, especially these 2020 and 4020 rails, they all came with the kit. Those are all aluminum parts. I'm slightly disappointed because it showed these corner brackets in the picture in the kit as machined aluminum, and it turns out I have to print them. Not too big a deal, other than, you know, the picture showed aluminum, but like these brackets, if you don't buy this aluminum kit, you can just print these brackets. But they're not as strong, and so I ordered the kit, and so I have like aluminum motor brackets. I have 2 aluminum handles. I have to print the other 2, and so basically it comes with most everything shown here except for the printed parts. So I have to print all these ducts, and interestingly, I hadn't given it too much thought. I was thinking about, I'm like, man, how am I going to print those ducts, just the geometry of them? I wasn't even thinking that they're too big for my printer, but now that I'm actually looking at it, it's the first time I've really reviewed the CAD model. And again, I have the quality turned way down just because there's so many features. Like I could defeature it and I could crank up the resolution. Running my graphics card is an RTX 4070. This is actually a really high-end laptop that I bought recently not as a necessarily as a permanent replacement for my desktop, but it's actually faster than I had a pretty high-end desktop that I built a few years back. It has a RTX 3090 in it. But I decided, I was debating. I said, should I upgrade my desktop, or should I build another desktop, or should I buy a high-end laptop? Because the technology's come so far now that even just a high-end laptop. So this is actually plugged in with an HDMI cable to my 43-inch 4K Samsung monitor. It's a nice one. It's not. I don't think it's OLED, but it was like $600. So it wasn't, the $300 43-inch 4K. It was like $600 one, whatever that means to you. So this here we have two linear screws. Acme screws. They are 4-start. Interesting. These show as a single start. The actual screws are 4-start. I was looking at that. You might have seen my other video where I kind of went over that. So it's got 2 screws and 4 linear guide rods for the Z. But the X and Y, they're all linear rail bearing, what do you want to call them? Linear rails. And so that's a higher quality than a round rod, linear rods. What else is going on here? So the guy that designed this, look at this print nozzle. The nozzle is only a standard nozzle. I'm not sure what the standard is, but so if I isolate this guy, you'll see it's not the entire. Oh, it's all one part. How special. Well, anyway, it's a regular nozzle that plugs into this design here. I wonder if I have if this is on the modeled on. Oh, it might be. I might be able to section that. Not directly, but I can slide to it, I'm sure. Ah, they cheated on the model. No big deal. So, but this nozzle, it's not even like a. Oh, it doesn't like to section it. Not a big surprise. The helical things and stuff, SolidWorks doesn't like to section a lot of times. But it's a serious beast. It's got DIN rails to mount things. It's got a filter, carbon filter. I think I have to buy that separate. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure. I don't think I saw the carbon filter. I did. It has two power supplies. It does come with that. Oh, interesting. My Raspberry Pi, I see, is mounted to a DIN rail. Now, silly me, I bought a entire enclosure Raspberry Pi kit, so I probably just wasted some money there. But it was funny. I realized that my Raspberry Pi 3s weren't going to work kind of late in the process, and so I was in a panic to hurry up and buy Raspberry Pi 4. And I think that's because of the display. I don't know if so. Said Raspberry Pi 4 recommended because of this display. And so I went to Micro Center. So there were like 4 or 5 recommended dealers or authorized dealers of the Pi 4. Like one was Micro Center, so I go there, they're out of stock. Another one, I go there, they're out of stock. I'm like, no, I remember hearing that there was a Raspberry Pi shortage. And so then like the 3rd or 4th one I went to, they had some, and they were pretty pricey, but I was just glad to get them. So it ended up costing me like $220 shipped to get the Raspberry Pi. And so you guys can ridicule me that I overpaid for that probably. Leave your ridicule in the comments, appreciate it. And oh, we have a wing nut, not sure what that's for. I'm going to sneeze, so that'll be interesting. Maybe. So the cover flips up. Like I say, all what do you call it? Acrylic panels. Flip up cover. Not sure what else to show. So it looks like these Levers lock the doors shut, I'm imagining. Okay, so yeah, I imagine that's like a door stop and then a door latch type of deal. So not super high tech. Interesting that he went with that instead of magnets. Probably a good reason. I don't know why. But definitely impressive looking nozzle setup here. And I'm not sure what's heating the nozzle. What is this? I guess that's probably a cartridge heater. Not sure. Not sure what that's representing. But definitely impressive looking machine. And it's funny because I didn't even really know exactly what I was buying when I bought it. I just saw videos of the creator of it. He has a bunch of content, VzBot, VEZ3D channel. And it's super impressive speeds that he's hitting, and flow rates and acceleration rates and things. And so I sort of impulse bought it because I was sort of sick of fighting with my K1, even though it's mostly working well. But I definitely wanted a backup machine. So here's the deal. I wanted a second machine, so when I was working on one, I could still be printing. I actually ordered a K1 Max the day that came out to complement my K1. But then I was having issues with my K1, especially the extruder, and I looked like it was going to be a little while before I could get a new extruder replacement. So I decided to cancel my K1 Max order because I didn't want two printers with disposable extruders. And I decided, and I was familiar with this in the Voron and the Rat Rig and things like that. And so I decided to just bite the bullet, pull the trigger. Build a DIY kit, build a serious DIY kit that just blows all those other machines out of the water. And so this hopefully is it. I sort of had a little bit of buyer's remorse for a day or so. But then I went on their Discord. They have an excellent Discord server, and lots going on over there, and lots of people showing off what they're doing with these, and it's pretty impressive. I haven't seen anything big printed there yet, but I've only just browsed for maybe a half hour total, and the speeds and the quality looked great, and so I look forward to it. So anyway, so this is called a VZ330 VzBot VZ330. I think it says it on the display, VzBot. Maybe it's not modeled. Oh, it's so slow with the with his million features. I'm curious, can I do a performance evaluate in assemblies? I don't think so. Evaluate. Performance evaluation. Okay. All up to date. Large assembly. Total number of components 4,491. Unique parts, 723. Sub-assembly, 1619. Holy cow. No wonder why I had slowed down my computer. So yeah, let me get back to the computer. It's got the RTX 4070. It's got 64 gig of, I believe, DDR5 RAM, which most of the laptops I was looking at had, I believe it was DDR4. This is one of the very few this was the only one that I found that had both the latest RAM and 64 gigabytes of it. And that was really the key for me buying this machine, but it was also very affordable. It's called what's it called? The name is escaping me now. It's called, I bought it from AVA Electronics or AVA something, and it's called the Clevo. It's called the Clevo. Is that right? Or is that where I was going to buy it before? Yeah, I believe it's called the Clevo, which is funny when it boots up. That's not what it says on the boot screen, but that's who they're a Taiwanese company, I guess, and they're also they have some headquarters in Germany, I guess, and it's kind of hard to find them in the States, but I was just so impressed that they actually had the RTX. So when I was looking a few months ago, they were the only one that I could find. They had 64 gig of DDR5 and the 13th gen processor also. So a lot of the high-end laptops had the 12th gen processor and or the DDR4 RAM, and it was just about impossible to find a laptop with 64 gigabytes of RAM. And I also upgraded it to have 2 of the Western Digital Black SSDs running in RAID 0, which consensus is that that's useless, and as usual consensus is wrong, because if you're doing CAD all day of huge files like this, like watch this, if I hit save here, we'll only finish going through this, but we're going to time it if I hit save. So like alright, so it's not saying the rebuild time, number of bodies 8,000. It doesn't say how many, you know, vertexes or edges or whatever. So like if I went into a part and did the performance evaluation, it would give me something different. So like if I open this belt as an example, because it's got a lot of teeth, and then I go into tools and performance, what is it? Tools evaluate, performance evaluation. So it only took 2 seconds. That's interesting. So that's a lot of teeth, but I mean that's not too surprising. I have some recent model that's unbelievably detailed, and it would take, oh, I don't even remember how long it was taken to rebuild. It was crazy, and so I really had to work on my workflow and file structure to mitigate that lag because of the extreme amount of features on it. It was basically as a simulated knurling plus other things on this round cylindrical with a lot of features and blah blah blah. It was super complex. I'd show it, but kind of actually I probably can't really show it. I got permission to show it in my portfolio, but anyway, yeah. What was I saying? So the computer, yeah. So if you're saving all the time in CAD, the saves can take a long time. So save speed is very important to me. So like if I go save here, let's see if I can see how long it takes. S for save. It's saving. It's saving. It's saving. It's saving. It's saving. Still saving. Still saving. Still saving. So anybody that tells you that SSD in RAID 0 is overkill is not doing complex CAD modeling, or is confused, or underinformed, because as you can see, it's still saving. It's still saving, and this is extremely fast. Like I say, SSDs, like brand new, latest SSDs in RAID 0, and it's still taking, I mean, what are we at, 20-30 seconds now? Still saving. So definitely worth doing. Like if you're gaming, you don't need it. If you're doing, word processing, if you're a writer, even if you're doing, Photoshop or something, I imagine it's not critical. And one SSD is probably overkill. But if you're doing complex CAD and probably a lot of other things, if you're doing like, I don't know, I don't even know what else would, I don't know, maybe video editing, or definitely, if you're doing like CGI potentially, but that may be different. All right, it's done. I mean, that was about a part of a minute that it took to save that. So if I had a much slower drive here, this would take 10 minutes to save, and that's not an exaggeration. That other file that I had that I mentioned was in that ballpark. Actually, well, it was in a similar ballpark as this, now that I think about it. But when I did before this computer, it probably took me, that model was so complex, I would do it in multiple parts, and then I would join them together in another part, and then I would, when I was all done and ready to export, I would combine them. And on this machine, it probably took like a minute and a half just to do the combine command. And on my old one, it probably took like 4 times that to combine them. And so anyway, so I guess that's enough about this. Not too much more to tell about it, but I really look forward to getting it built. Not sure how long it's going to take me. I'm in the process of, I just contacted someone to potentially buy all the 3D printed parts rather than print them myself, just for time's sake. I have plenty to do, and I have real work to do that I can charge clients for, and so why print a whole bunch of stuff when I can buy the parts printed for probably, I don't know, $100, $150 and have them delivered, and then I don't have to spend a week printing parts. I can bill clients instead. So so I think that's probably the way to do do it, even though you might have seen on some of my videos today printing in polycarbonate, or failing at printing in polycarbonate. But actually I'll summarize that just in case anybody was watching live and was wondering what happened. So the latest ones, the camera kept failing because I closed the shed door because I was getting warping, and so I decided to, typically I keep the shed door open and fans blowing into it to get toxic fumes out of the shed, but I was getting a warping so much that it actually, this thing, it takes up most of the bed, and it warped like a banana, and it actually lifted the bed on my K1, turned the print bed, like pulled the magnet right away from pulled the print bed right away from the magnet, like made my print bed like a Pringle potato chip. And so I decided that I had to put the lid on, and I might as well also close the shed doors and stop blowing circulating air through it, so maybe I can mitigate that warping. And it's printing right now as far as I know, and I need to go check it because it may have warped again, or it may have failed in many other ways. And then I had another failure that the broken spool from the PC, the polycarbonate spool, had fallen off a shelf or off a table like a bunch of months ago and cracked. And it was working. I had zip tied it back together and it was working fine. But then my last print, it cracked worse, and the filament jammed and caught and tangled. And so I had another failure, and so I'm printing yet again. And so that's a good example of why I'd rather just pay somebody else to print them for me, as long as the price isn't ridiculous. So I guess that's enough for this. I look forward to running it, and I hope you look forward to seeing some content of me running it and testing with it, building it. I did an unboxing the other day. If you didn't see it, you might want to check it out. And I will do probably more videos as I build it and then test it and all that stuff. So if you want to see that, stay tuned, subscribe for that, maybe the notification bell, so you can not miss any of them. And if you could like the video, that'd be super helpful. Tickle the underbelly of the algorithm, and makes it happy and gets me more views. And share with your friends, and comment or ridicule or whatever you want to do. It's all good. And I look forward to seeing your stats on my analytics. And happy printing.